Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll take a look at the custom payload which was used to generate this list of buttons in the Zoho chatbot. So I'm going back to my Dialogflow intent here, and this was the intent which actually fired when we got this list of buttons to show up. And notice that the custom payload here has a few fields. The first is there is a field called platform, and you can see that it has the word Zoho Sales IQ. And then you have a field called input, and you can see that the field type is select, and it has a list of options, and the options is like an array. You can see that these square brackets indicate that it's an array, and it's an array of strings where each string has the text which goes into the button text. And then you also have the replies field which sort of goes on top of these buttons, where it says, okay, which of these are you interested in, and then it shows this list of options. Now let's go back to the Zoho documentation, and this is where we were. And remember that when you put the custom payload in the right format, it's supposed to show up as the output shown, similar to the output shown here, which is that's exactly what we got, right? The purpose of adding this Zoho Sales IQ platform field is that when the integration code sends some response from Dialogflow back to the Zoho chatbot, so they have built their own integration. That is, Zoho has built a one-click integration with Dialogflow, and in case you're not familiar with it, I think you should go and check it out. It's a very good integration. So, and what happens is when the custom payload JSON object is sent back via the integration code, it has this object inside. That is, this object comes back as part of the response. And when it looks at the custom payload, what Zoho is going to do is it's going to check, oh, is there any message here which corresponds to Zoho Sales IQ? And if there is, then it's going to take this whole JSON object, right? It goes one level up, and it takes the whole JSON object and then uses this whole information and accordingly renders the response into the live chat widget that you have for Zoho, right? So what's happening here is that the platform field it's acting as a hint to the specific channel that you're using. So in this case it's Zoho, it could also be Skype, it could be Slack, and in the case of those platforms you will find that the integration code actually sends a message where it says the platform is Slack or the platform is Skype, or maybe it has a unique number which is understood by those platforms. I don't remember exactly, but I think that it probably says Slack and Telegram and all that. But the important point is that this word, this field platform is used to distinguish. It's giving a hint to those channel integrations and saying to them like, hey, this is what you expected, this is the format that you wanted, and this is the object that I have, and you can use all this information to render the rich control into your channel as your need is, as whatever your user expects. Maybe it's a suggestion chip which goes to Facebook Messenger, maybe it's a card type which goes to Slack, and all of them will have this platform, and then it will have a JSON object, and the format of this object is usually specified by the channel. In this example, for example, Zoho decided that to be able to render this list of buttons and have something on top of the show up as some text on top of it, you need to have this format. Okay, you have to follow this format so that it is able to render the list of buttons into the live chat widget. It will have a different format. For example, if you want to show a calendar, let's just quickly click on this calendar thing, and you see that in this case the platform is still the same. The replies will have choose a date, and in this case the input, you can see that the type has changed from select to calendar, and then you have a label, and you can see that it will render like an actual calendar inside the live chat widget. So the point I'm making overall is that custom payloads are used to send rich responses, even regular responses, but custom payloads specifically are used for rich responses for different channels. And they are the important thing is that all these channels should make sure that they have a field which they will select for themselves, and which has to be used in the custom payload that you send, so that those channels know which platform the message is intended for. It's possible that you might have the same response going to different channels, like the same intent could be, you have a bot in Dialogflow which is integrated with Slack, with Skype, with Zoho, with everything, and you have to use the platform field to distinguish which message object is intended for which channel. And the other thing that I want to point out is, you can understand that in Dialogflow today, like if you were to go to Dialogflow and look at the console, you can see that with the plus sign, you can see that these are all the built-in integrations that Dialogflow already has, right? Facebook and Slack and Telegram. Let's just quickly go into Facebook, because I want to show something. In Facebook, there are these different responses that are supported. There's a text response, image, card, quick replies, and custom payload. Now, if you were to use, let's say, the image, right? Notice that here you're not actually using the custom payload. You're just typing the image URL into an actual box. Now, this is under the hood also using a payload, except that it's not called the custom payload. It's a different type of payload. And the problem with this is that now Facebook may be improving their channel so much that they will be keep on adding newer, rich type of responses, and it's not possible for the Dialogflow team to be on top of every single possible rich response that Facebook has added. In the same way, it's not possible for Dialogflow team to know exactly which type of rich response is going to be supported by the Zoho live chat service, because just like Zoho, there are so many other live chat services, and many of them have rich controls like these input cards. It's not possible for the Dialogflow team to go and build the specific information into their console, because there are just too many of these integrations. There's just too many of the rich responses. Each of them have their own idiosyncrasies. So that's where they introduce this idea of the custom payload. And then you can just say custom payload, and then you make sure that you provide this information. And then as long as the format that you put into the custom payload is one which is honored by the channel integration that you're interested in. And notice that here it says Facebook and then goes something with the information. But for the Zoho, we had to actually if you remember, we had to put platform and Zoho Sales IQ. And this is a sort of like a protocol that these companies have agreed amongst themselves. And if you don't have this integration supported directly inside Dialogflow, then your option would be to add this platform field and then provide whatever platform name, and then based on that you can get this message object. All right, I think that's a fairly complex explanation, I think, but at the same time, getting a good understanding of what is going on under the hood for these rich responses, and specifically with regards to custom payload, will actually help you design any kind of integration, any kind of rich response. You can, if you want, you can create your own. I'll give a great example. As of today, there is no simple Android integration for Dialogflow. That is, there is no simple way to have an app which is built for Android, which uses rich controls and which uses Dialogflow in the backend. So let's say that you decided to build your own Android, framework or whatever, a library for Android which will allow you to do this kind of stuff. Then what you will do is you will define a platform field that you want your users to use. So maybe you will call it like Android Dialogflow library or something, and then that would be in the name of the platform. That is, it will be added as the platform value. And then you will also declare like what fields that you support. Maybe you will have similarly like select options and all that. And then you will, based on that, you will actually render the appropriate widget into your Android apps user interface. Now, having said all this, there is one more thing that I would like to point out. So for that, I am going to go to the integration for the Dialogflow Messenger. Alright, so now I am in the Dialogflow Messenger integration, and I'm going to click on Show Button Type. Remember that this also uses the custom payload. right? And here, the important thing that you have to notice is that the custom payload is prefaced with this thing called rich content. Now, this is what acts like the um, platform field which we use for Zoho. And if you remember for Facebook, I can even show that right here. In the case of Facebook, if you were to add a custom payload, you notice that you have this Facebook as the actual field inside the custom payload. So if it has Facebook, it goes to Facebook Messenger. If it has rich content, it goes to Dialogflow Messenger. And I think that if you go to something else like Slack and try that, yeah, see, now it says Slack, and in that case, this payload is sent across and this is used by Slack. The point I'm making is that the Dialogflow Messenger, for its part, uses rich content as the field name to know that that object is intended for the Dialogflow Messenger integration.